Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod, an accessible and easy way to get into or help understand the goings-on of the property market. Join Aaron, John and Pat as they discuss all things real estate, most likely get sidetracked, and then try and rein it all back in as they present The Property Pod.
All right, welcome back to episode 3.
Morning, gentlemen.
3 episodes down, I can't believe it.
I know, how good are we going?
I think we've had a few listens, which is good.
We have. I've got something to bring up very soon, but we'll introduce ourselves first. I'm Aaron, I'm here to host the Property Pod, and I'm joined by my 2 real estate agent friends, John McGregor.
G'day, everyone. Paddy.
Oh, and Patrick Berry.
And
I guess I'll
Patrick.
introduce myself.
And Patrick Berry. No, well, just jumping straight off the back, I've actually had some feedback from episode 1.
Oh, good.
And it was to do with your brother.
Oh, that's it.
So they were listening and they wanted to know if the stories that go into Rosehaven. So just for context, if you haven't listened to episode 1, John's brother is stand-up comedian and actor Luke McGregor, has a TV show Rosehaven, which is real estate based. And they wanted to know if there are any stories that have come out of your dad, your mum, yourself, or anyone in the industry that have then gone into the show.
There's been a few, actually. So what Luke and Celia wanted to make sure of is that though the show is fictional, that the practice and what they do is actually true to life. So they'll call up and ask about, look, how many days notice do you need for a vacant possession? What would you do in this, multiple offer negotiation situation? What would this happen, et cetera, et cetera. But, and then they'll just build stories around the actual requirements by legislation, which is quite good. It gives a grounding to the show. But there has been quite a few that happened that were like 90% true.
Yeah.
So there's one episode where they got inspired by having all those charms on the front doors. And Barbara, there's a scene where Barbara talks about this situation where she had to negotiate with a client who thought that a satellite dish on a roof was connecting with the aliens and was going to destroy the building. That was actually based on a true story that happened to Mum and I.
Yeah.
When we were strata managers, one of the neighbours had put on like an Ozstar dish, and one of the next door neighbours had come in and said, "Oh, Julie, look, I'm really concerned that the satellite is going to be reaching out to the aliens and they're going to be beaming their information back to the." So what do you do with that situation? Because obviously you're not dealing with it's not a logic. Well, there's a logic to it to some degree,
Yeah.
but rather than just saying, "Oh, you're insane," Mum actually went and did all the research, assessed the power outputs of the satellite, and got all the scientific information, represented it to the owner, and said, "Look, I've got some good news. We've gone behind the scenes and done the research for you, and we've found out that these particular Ozstar dishes are not designed to penetrate any further than the satellites orbited in the Earth. So any concerns around reaching out further than's required, luckily enough, we don't have to be worried about." And the owner's like, "Oh, that's really good news. Well, in that case, they can keep the satellite dish."
Wow.
And so they threw that in as a little anecdote side story that Barbara actually tells, not in those words exactly, but that was just sort of a fun sort of side one. And I think there was Luke in the very first series. This was Luke's story, I think, where when we were kids. We never used to kill spiders. We used to trap them and throw them over the next door neighbour's fence.
I remember this episode.
Yeah, so,
Open home in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. So the thought then was that that little walk happens where they're thrown. Didn't want to kill the spiders, so they kept getting thrown over the neighbour's fence, and all of a sudden, you end up with this giant mess of spiders that never got killed, and they've started a new family. So that's where that little tidbit came from. So. They never really based any major story arcs on real events, but there were just little side stories that just sort of added humour here and there, or could spice up a scene. And we've got we just gave them dozens and dozens and dozens of situations. One's from here was another one from a friend of ours. The story where the goldfish gets stolen. Remember that? No, that was I think it was in season 2 or 3, and the goldfish gets stolen. That was loosely based off a true story that happened to one of our friends in Mount Druitt, where he's based now. And he had an open home where his owner's goldfish was just basically swimming in its own mess, and some person who'd been at the open home got out a knife, and the fact that he's carrying around a knife at an open home is
That's
bad enough.
bizarre enough.
And he's carved into the side table his his or her, I don't know, their mobile number, and said they will take care of the fish. So they didn't steal the fish. They didn't leave a post-it note. They carved into the actual
Like
chest of
you
drawers.
see in a tree when it's
Yeah,
like
that's it. Yeah,
JM loves.
Yep.
The fish.
They carved in their mobile number to say, well, or either their mobile number or just said, I'll take care of this fish for him. And then that little fun story ended
Could
up.
have just let the agent know.
Oh, I know, right? It's crazy. So he didn't know. I mean, you're not going to walk around checking after an open home every single little chest of drawers. So of course they got called back and like, well, what the hell? Lucky enough they were able to trace the person back with all their records and stuff. But
Did they look after the fish in the end?
I think, well, I don't
the fish
know.
go to
Did the fish go to a better home? I don't know. Yeah, but there was another little story. So it's fun. You think about what's happened to you over the years, and you imagine thousands of agents around. Some of the stories that actually happened to us, you can't make up in fiction.
Well, I guess that's a good reason to have something like this. We can discuss serious topics, but as you can hear in the start, we often get distracted and sidetracked, and I loved hearing those stories. We should have a little segment each week with bizarre stories from the real estate world.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. No, man. There's a lot. We've got dozens at our office, and you guys would be able to dig up a fair few from the ether, I'm sure, Pat, if you thought about it.
Oh, yeah, but that'll take energy.
So yeah, in answer to the question, are some of the things based on true events? Some of them are.
Yeah, no, it's just good to get some feedback from people who actually listen. There might not be lots of them out there just yet, but yeah, they wanted to know that. So I said, oh, well, I'll put it to John and we'll put it to record and you'll be able to hear.
Now you need to make sure that you don't tell them personally and see if they listen.
Yes. Oh, that's a good plan.
Yeah,
I'll
don't
try
go
that.
back and tell them the answer. Wait until
I'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they can be like, hey, Aaron, I heard that they are true stories. And you're like, yes.
Yes, they listen. We've got a follower.
All right.
Well, maybe we should follow up on something we spoke about previously. I know you brought in some info, John.
Actually, this one was only released from so Jason, who was on with us last week. So his company and his chief economist that we spoke about just on May the 21st. This one was linked. Hopefully, we should be able to put a link of this to the show notes. But what it is, the title says the tab has been turned back on APRA to relax assessment rate for to home loans. Now, to give you a little bit of just background on what that means is that even if you've got APRA sets a standard on what people can, what interest rate the banks need to assess a person at.
Can you fill me in on what the acronym APRA stands for?
Oh, Australian Property. God, I can't remember.
I was just reading through the article to figure that out as well.
Hey, I just had a mind like. Oh, there we go. The Australian Prudential Regulation Authority.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, yes,
Never.
Prudential. That's a good word. I'm going to add that to my words that I learnt today. So unfortunately, I just learnt actually what APRA was. I knew the acronym, but I didn't actually know the 4 letters.
All right, we'll let you off.
Anyway. moving on.
Yep, my bad. I threw you under the bus there.
That's good. I was sounding intelligent, but we all know the truth of it.
Bring him down a peg.
Anyway, so what APRA does with a mortgage lending minimum standard is, let's just say you get a mortgage rate at 5%. What the bank needs to do is assess your pay whether or not you can do repayments if
Your ability to pay the money back.
That's it. Ability to pay the money back if that went to up to 7%. So I think the standard was either up to 7% or 2% above your mortgage rate, whatever was the highest.
Okay, so even though you're only, say, have an interest rate of 4% or 5% or whatever it may be, they worked out your repayments on a higher amount just so that they'll cover you in case the interest rates went up. Is that what you're effectively saying?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that would base on how much you could potentially borrow because they'd be actually working it out on a higher percentage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then look, I mean, the handy thing about that, well, probably where people have been denied finance in the past, I thought, well, what the hell? I thought that I was perfectly able to repay those.
So I've used that online calculator and it said I could borrow it, but when reality comes, they've worked it out on a different number.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And so what apparently the decisions are now is to just relieve that threshold a little bit. Obviously, I don't think there's any specifications of what that's going to be, but
it's not going to be as big a percentage as what it is.
from what they're discussing. So, in that, then in terms of they're saying turning the tap back on, is that it's going to give a little bit more flexibility then for obviously with a low cash rate of 1.5, 1.7, whatever it is. Even when the banks have given a really good mortgage rate, they're not going to have to assess it right up to 7%. So it's going to give some people that little bit of flexibility to get into the market.
It could be really good for first home buyers. So you put that in conjunction, obviously, with the grants that are available and the new 5% deposit scheme, and now this. It's all things to help first home buyers be able to afford property.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not nice little sort of, and probably first home buyers are the ones that would benefit from all this the most.
Yep.
It did sort of counter to say, well, sometimes in that instance you might have you're coming up against a second home buyer, so it applies to everyone, obviously. But yeah, first home buyers, if coupled with all the extra incentives, were probably the
Biggest winners
in this as well.
Yeah, well, it's always hard to get money when you're a first home buyer, and you're normally borrowing the largest percentage for your first home. As you move on, hopefully you're starting to get a bit of capital behind you. So that makes total sense what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the election now passed and the Liberal government back in or still in power, does that affect the Labor's promise? I know they said they'd back the same housing scheme. Do you know if that's still going ahead, Pat?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going ahead. It was a Liberal promise first. So
they started
and then Labor backed it. So it's definitely going to go ahead. I don't think it starts to January though, so a little bit of time before that 5% deposit scheme comes in.
But that is a benefit to go along with this tap being turned on.
Yeah, and obviously in Tasmania, the added bonuses like the first home buyer scheme and obviously the stamp duty reduction for first home buyers. There's plenty of schemes out there that help first home buyers get into the marketplace, which should be great.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest one that post-election that was sort of on the chopping block that people might have been concerned about was what was going to happen with negative gearing and a few other elements like that. So be curious to see now that all that stuff's just gone and life will return to normal.
Yeah,
it should make confidence with investors, I think, and keep them happy and wanting them to invest in more property. And obviously, we need more rental properties here in Hobart. There's a massive shortage, so definitely a good thing all around, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I learnt a new word the other day. Speaking of new words, learning rent vesting.
Rent vesting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys know about rent vesting?
My understanding of it is that was just a fancy word of, oh wait, no, this is where you buy a home and then live with your parents. Was that right? Yeah. Or you purchase an investment property and then you rent somewhere else.
Yeah, essentially. Nick Nutanui taught me about it on a realestate.com ad.
Oh, good.
But so that he was sports-splaining it.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think it was you buy a property in a place that you can afford,
and then rent in the place you want to live.
Exactly, and so you rent vest. So it was kind of a merging of two words.
Yeah, I have a investor that does that on all his properties. He has 4 now in Hobart, and that's mainly because he can't afford to live where he wants to in Victoria.
Yep.
So he's buying them here, trying to build capital and pay them down, and then hopefully one day he'll sell them off and be able to buy the property in the suburb that he wants to live.
That's exactly how Nick Nat said it. Boom. I think he described it as the players in their 20s coming in and then as you get, you're playing the midfield, but then when you get into your 30s, you start getting moved down into the forward line just to pick up possessions. He said he was close to it.
And this was an AFL.com ad?
No, this was realestate.com.
Oh, realestate.com.
I love good analogies.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, it helped me. I was like, I've never heard of that, and I wouldn't know what it is, and now I do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we had, with Pat's example, we've had a lot of young people from the first home buyers from interstate. It's been a while since I've helped anyone now, a few years now, but that was the same thing. Like they're based in Victoria, they've got all their, they're pursuing their careers. They might have been from Tassie originally or never been to Tasmania before, and to secure their first home was going to cost them like a third of what they were going to be from in their immediate area.
Yep.
So to me, I think it's actually makes sense in a lot of ways. Fortunate enough, it's just not something that I've had to experience personally.
Yeah, well, everyone goes through their different paths and
I like it as an option because obviously millennials have this vision of wanting the nice place in the nice suburb, and it's not always affordable. They are more expensive. and it's a good way to get your foot in the door but still enjoy the lifestyle you want to enjoy. So it's a nice mix. I think it's good.
Yeah, it's sort of giving that ability that we don't have to wait 10, 15 years to level up.
Yeah.
It's just like get straight in and
then the fear of when you're ready to level up, things have gone beyond your level and
yeah, exactly.
So-
Yeah.
gain those experience points early.
Damn straight. I'm sure there's like an RPG element we could integrate there somehow.
You have gained XP.
Yeah, da-da-ding.
I was just thinking Mario stuff. Like, that's all I think about is Mario.
Well, it's like getting the mushroom that makes you bigger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
then once you've gone past that mushroom, you can get the raccoon tail or the fireball.
And I can already hear the people clicking off the podcast now.
I think we're going to get extra listeners. They're like, oh, Mario. Your son will love it. He loves Mario.
Well, he is one of our biggest listeners every week in the car. 5-year-old loves it.
You should heard Pat came in the other day and he said Parker wouldn't get out of the car because the show wasn't finished. He's like, I don't want to miss what you and Aaron have to say.
Couldn't understand it was a pre-recorded and it wasn't live on the radio.
Doesn't matter.
Yep. So we've tapped the 6-year-old, 5-year-old marketplace spot on.
Right, we're gonna have to get at some sick merch soon for the
Hell
6-year-olds.
yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I reckon it might be a good time to jump into our deep dive for this week.
Yeah,
so I
cool.
think we're going to go into my area of expertise, but we'll have to plan out it and we'll come back and see.
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006. With their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property, they have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
Let's deep dive. What are we talking about today, Pat?
We're going to talk about photos and what's acceptable in the marketplace today. So obviously real estate photos play a massive role when we're promoting properties for sale. It's one of our key marketing methods. So we thought we'd look into the different styles, how to go about it, what's involved, and everything photos. So let's do it.
Well, I might be able to start with. We've got our company's been established for about since 1982, 1986.
Holy moly.
It's been around a long time.
Before we were around.
Yeah, pretty much. But then, so how that evolved was Dad got involved with. Sorry, there is a purpose to the story, but
This will be the first time ever.
yeah,
Sometimes we wonder.
stuff it. I'll get right to the end. Anyway, we've got these newspaper articles that go back, well over 15 years. So from just exclusively classified before the photos, right from bad photos to big photos to, these newspaper articles for years.
Yep.
But one of my favourite ones was actually, it's a sketch of a house.
Oh, I've got some in my drawer. Do you want me to go grab one?
Yeah, but that was before they even put photos in the newspaper for real estate ads. You could organise a sketch artist to go.
Oh, like in a court of law where
That's it, yeah.
like they come in and draw the person looking somber or happy or...
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like this line drawing of a house in black and white and used to go in the newspaper.
Yeah, cool.
I'll add some into the show notes so people can see what we're talking about, but it's pretty amusing.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned that. So rather than professional photography, you had a professional sketch artist to do like a nice little photo of your home.
And unfortunately, they went the way of Blockbuster. Just gone.
Well, you've got a story about the way they used to use moving forward from line drawings to photo cameras back in the film days.
Oh, yeah. So, oh, yeah. Did I?
Yeah, I did.
So, just so we're clear, John and I weren't around when any of this happened, but we've just have dads that both do real estate, so we get a bit of like stories from the good old days, I guess. One of my favourites is with the film cameras, you're allowed to take 4 photos of a property, and then you had to wait until there was enough listed properties for the rest of the film to be used up so they could take it to the chemist to be processed. Then you get your photos back. If they're not what you actually wanted or they didn't look any good, you had to go take new photos and then wait for the next film to be finished. And most films are like 24 photos, so it's 4. Obviously, you've got to get 5 or 6 listings before the...
Yeah, so imagine if the listings weren't coming hard and fast.
Yeah.
You're
We've
just
got
sitting there, yeah.
we've got people on the staff at 414 who, if their photos aren't ready after 20 minutes, they're cracking the the whip.
Yeah, 3-week wait, waiting for those photos to come through. Come on.
I guess it just goes to show how different the times were back then, that if you were listing your property, it would take a while to get it on the market and things would go a lot slower, but we're living in a
digital world now.
Yeah, now. So
And it's progressed over time. Like when I first started in 2006, I used to take my own photos, and you would have been the same when you,
Yeah.
John. Used to go with a digital camera, take some photos, put them on the computer within 5 minutes.
Yep.
Now, I'd be very surprised if there's anyone left in Hobart that are doing their own photos.
Oh,
It's-
without question.
Yeah, very unusual now for an agent to take a photo of a property. It's now all done by outsourcing to professional photographers, which is where Aaron comes in.
That is where I come in.
So obviously you do all our photos.
Yeah, do all the marketing materials for all the agents here at 414 and do some stuff for
Me as well.
McGregor. And so essentially go in and not only take photos but now do 3D scanning, which is like Google Maps essentially. You can walk through the property without actually leaving the comfort of your couch or your computer. We do video marketing materials, so not only is it photos but there's
Photos, videos, floor plans. We're doing social media videos now, which are little bite-sized videos to use on Instagram. So there's a lot of different components now that make up marketing. But like even just doing the photos, it's not just taking them, coming back, putting them on the computer and them going out, is it? As?
Oh, no, there's much more to it. So I guess you want to present the property in its best light and try and maximise its features and present it in a way that is appealing to the buying market. So there's editing, but not to kind of make it different, fake or, I guess...
So you're improving it. Like at the end of the day, we talk about photoshopping photos, but we're not like making the property unrealistic. We're just adding more color into it, brightening it up so it feels more appealing when someone is looking through the photos. It's really what it boils down to, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess one big part of it is when you kind of are in a room and you're looking out the window, you know, your eyes are exposed to the interior light, the exterior light, and everything that is part of it. But if you're taking a photo from inside,
The camera can only do one or the other.
exactly. So a lot of the photoshopping that happens is simply filling in the backlight and filling in the outside exposure so that you actually get a feel for this is what the room looks like and this is how.
I will see it with my eyes.
Yeah. So rather than being these blown out, like, oh, I wonder what's outside that window, you actually have an opportunity to see it as your eyes would see it.
Well, that's where I remember looking back on the photos that I'd taken. So you try and you can capture the room as much as you can, but then of course the window is just completely bright white.
Yeah.
So that's when you're taking. So now you're like taking layered shots and then layering it over. So you captures the inside, medium, and then the outside. So
Exactly
you can
that,
see right through,
Yeah, so there was a style of a high dynamic range of trying to get as much range in the photo and merge it all together, but it actually used to add a lot of noise. So when you see some of the photos that have really grainy and lots of dots, that's all the noise that's come in from making that picture happen. So, what we're doing now is called a flash ambient method. And so you're kind of taking a high exposure flash, you're mixing that with some of the ambient light in the room, and sometimes you'll have to get some light from other areas and bring it all in, but it's bringing in to create a natural effect on the space that you're in.
Yeah. And like us as agents, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make it look like it does in real life. We're not trying to deceive people with making it look more impressive. I know there's some bad stories out there. I've seen one in the past where the photographer purposely chose to angle the photo quite low looking at the house, and that was so the roof actually hid the big giant water tank or petrol tank or whatever it was in the backyard.
Actually, I think they end up physically digitally
Oh, did they?
moving that.
Oh, I thought they just like purposely framed the
It was
shot.
sort of both.
So
It was
hid.
both. Yeah.
I feel like there's one with a like a nuclear power stack somewhere in Russia or something that's been removed, and it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like, come here.
Yeah, big green tree put in.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all talking about the same story, and that was one in Australia where it was a giant water tank like directly behind the house.
Yeah, and it was obviously wasn't appealing. It didn't make you want to live there. So the agent and the photographer got a little bit creative.
Yeah.
And that's just taken it too far because you still got to show the house at the end of the day. So people are going to get disappointed when they get there. So
Yeah.
I guess that's one thing I try and do most of the time is think about the representation of the house accurately. Like, you can't have the photos show up online and then have the agent go and show it, and the person's like,
What the hell?
What the hell? This is not what I was advertised to me. And surely that's going to put the agent on the back foot regardless if they're like, oh, well, this looked beautiful in the photos.
Yeah, and the way my sort of turn of phrase of it, I want it to look as best as it can be, but not better than it is for that exact reason, because you don't want that disconnect of I've fallen in love with the photos, but now I've walked through the home. It's just like, I don't want this house at all. I want that transition so that there's a natural affinity for the home on the digital arena. So then you walk into the house and go, you know what? This is about what I expected in a good or positive, you know.
So this actually is a good point to segue into another section. Digital staging, like where we put in pretend furniture in the photos versus real staging of a house, John. Do you see that? Is there any point doing digital staging, or should you just avoid it? Because that's going to create that one appear online where the couch and the TV and everything's in the shot, but then people are going to go to the house and it's completely empty. Is that what you're talking about as well, or should you just avoid that altogether and just hire companies to put furniture in the house to present it?
Well, we had there's a couple of points on this. So we had a house in North Hobart that we sold, and they're good tenants, but they just had stuff everywhere.
Yep.
You know, it was overcluttered, and it was a beautiful old built in like 1910s. They had these nice high ceilings, you know, beautiful wood frame doors, but there was just stuff everywhere. So we actually had the stuff digitally removed, and with that, then we looked at the photos as, you know, with it removed, and then looked at the photos with all the stuff in there. And I mean, there was a huge difference. The ones without the stuff in there looked much better. The problem was, though, is that when we go back to my first principle, which was I want it to look as best as it can be, but not better than it is.
Yeah.
We, in discussion with the owner and the team, we thought, let's just roll with the punches and go for it. And luckily, we're fortunate enough we were able to get a lot of, you know, sell the property, obviously. But at least then when the buyers walked in, they knew what they were getting into.
So you did go with the ones that had the clutter?
They had the clutter, yeah. So there's like a fine balance between. So in answer to your question, my personal opinion when it comes to digital staging is have it accompanied with the original photos as well. So
this is what it looks like.
Like
this
a
is what
before
it could
and
look
after
like.
type
like
shot.
a before and after, because at least that helps with perspective, because the whole purpose with staging in a lot of ways is that it helps give you perspective on what you can do with that space, because naturally with no matter how big the room is, it's for a lot of people, it's really hard to see perspective on, okay, my couch is going to go here, or I could buy here. And normally your natural idea is to just have the room close in and use it for less than you think it's worth. But I mean, at my property, for example, I had when we were doing renovations at the moment, and the builder just gave me a couple of little principles on how much space you really need. And we just had the dining table shifted one way, and he said, look, just push your couch 1 metre down and turn your table this way, and bam, done. All of a sudden we had like it's because we've got an open plan, and immediately we ended up with more space, and just made sense just by mere fact of moving the couch down that we'd just grown comfortable with.
So do you think that the digital staging of say someone came into that room and it was empty, and then they were to put in the digital aspects, would that make the space look the way you want it to, or would it change?
So, yeah, I think what John's saying is that furniture helps, but at the same time, you don't want to trick people into believing it's one thing when it's not. So he's a fan of putting both photos up.
Yep.
So it gives them the vision of what it could be, but then they're not disappointed when they get there with an empty room.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, the only way you can improve from that is going away from the digital completely and hiring a company to actually bring in furniture for a staging campaign where
Someone like Shift, who we've used a few times.
Yeah, so they actually bring in the furniture, you rent it from them for a period of 4 or 5 weeks, and they're actually professional stagers / stylers, so they actually make the home, and they do exactly what John was just talking about moving the couch in the right position to improve the room, not oversize the room with furniture that doesn't fit the space, and make it look its best.
Actually, that'd be good. Adam and Danielle would be good to get on here, actually, because that's a whole other show in itself, talking about physical staging.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. We can look into that later. But I guess today was about photos, so we'll move on from that section.
Yeah, I think what was going to... what was that last thought that I had? No, too bad. It's gone. Never mind.
I think there's a crickets button here somewhere.
Story of my life.
All right. It's all good, I guess, for selling real estate properties, but we also need to think about rental photos. Like our agency, obviously, we've got Aaron on staff, so he's able to do all of our rental photos as well. So we treat, I guess, our rental properties the same way we do our sale properties. They get a lot of the same features, But we can do that because we have photographer and staff. How about you guys, John? You'd still be doing some photos yourself in the rental space, or are you slowly moving across?
We try and push as much as we possibly can. Unfortunately, the short-term price when it comes to landlords' perspective is they're going, right, well, if over the course of 12 months to get that, unfortunately, when you're getting a new tenant in, the most of the cost that's going to incur to a landlord is in the sourcing of the tenant and your letting fees and your management fees in that first bundle. And it's sometimes they get really hard to see the value of when you're negotiating on rental properties, you can actually get it at quite a lot less than a sale one because you don't have your floor plan often. You might do a few less, but my perspective when it comes to rental properties, and I was the one who sort of introduced it to our business for that reason, is that you get professional photos, that's going to last you at least 5 years.
That's what I was going to say, is that you can at least get a good 2 or 3 years use out of the photos before they have to be updated. So it's something that you need to push to the landlord and make them understand that, yes, it's a cost today, but it's going to be a cost that's going to help rent it faster, so days on market are shorter, and we should be able to use it for 2 or 3 rentals before we have to replace or update the photos. So it's definitely something that will help, I guess, over a longer period of time rather than just the short term.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. And look, the other thing of it too is that in the Hobart market at the moment, because the demand's so high, the necessity of effective rental marketing is not as essential because it's just the total demand. But the way I look at it again is that this is one of your biggest assets. Wouldn't you want the best possible person that you could find? I mean, playing the numbers game is great, but ultimately you could have 100 applications, but you're looking for the one that's like you want that person to look after your property the best. And I call it, if you're a bad tenant, it comes with a bad tenant tax, okay? So if you've got a property that might be worth $300 in the market and you put it at $350 in the market, you might find you've only got the not the highest quality of tenants because they come with a bad history and a bunch of other things that necessitates them to pay a higher rent. But if you've got an exceptional tenant with a great background, they may even come with a dog that they love, and they've looked after their previous house for 10 years, and they're the best creme de the creme, you could say. Yep. Those people aren't going to be coming. They're going to be looking for the best quality homes, marketed well. So when your property's in competition, you want it to stand out as best as you can to achieve just as you would in a sale. You're looking for the best buyer out there. You're looking for the best tenant as well. And from my perspective, I would not let any of my personal properties go on the market without professional photos.
Yes, well, any landlords out there, if you want some professional photos done, I am available. I'm probably not at the moment. I'm flat chat, but
pretty busy.
I'm very busy, but it's good to be busy. But if there's anyone out there that does need that, I'm sure that John can pass the information down along the line, and I'm happy to help them out on that front.
Oh, it's just It's a non-cost as far as I'm concerned. It's just
as important as doing your maintenance. It's
insurance. It's just because the demand of the consumer now is a lot more than it was. So the more information we can pass on to potential tenants as well, the better experience they're having when it comes to finding a home. Yep. So at least then it enables them to make faster decisions and eliminate properties that might not suit them.
And why should we treat tenants any different to purchasers? At the end of the day,
exactly.
We're trying to move a property. It's for rental, for sale, it's the same purpose. We're trying to market a property, promote it, attract the right buyer or the right tenant, and then get the deal done. So it should attract the same marketing methods.
Well, the other thing too, I'd encourage, because we assist private landlords and private sellers from time to time. Yep. And I've always put them in contact with our marketing crew because it's if you want advice on if you're going to get the best result, do it yourself, do it well. And it's encouraging to see that even private sellers and private landlords are sort of slowly seeing the benefits of getting these professional photos, even when doing it themselves. Because whether it's through an agency or doing it yourself, fundamentally the product is still the property, irregardless of who's selling it or leasing it. So you still want your product to look as best as it can be.
Yeah, without doubt.
Definitely.
Well, guys, I think we can talk about this all day.
Oh, yeah.
We have gone over our allocated time, but that's a very good sign.
Oh, good.
He gave you the wind up and you didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Not a problem at all.
Actually, just like when I'm driving along, I keep my eyes on the horizon and out for cars, and I get told off all the time that I'm snobbing everyone. It keeps waving past me. It's just,
Well, I wasn't offended this time. But next time I'll be throwing the arms in the air and be like,
I'm sure there's a mute button on there, so if all of a sudden I cut out, you know what's happened.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening again to the Property Pod. That was episode 3 in the can. We've gone a little bit over our allocated time, but as I say, I think that's a good sign. It means we've got plenty to talk about, and if we have to come back and re-talk about this topic, I'm happy to do so, and I'm sure the boys will be as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
So signing off for now. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Actually, that should be coming up on all the major podcast things too, won't it?
Yeah, I think this week we'll be able to go live on Spotify. Oh, actually, we're on Spotify now, but iTunes and Google Play and all of those ones should be going live soon.
That's great. Keep an eye out for that.
Any questions or comments, send them through. And, yeah, hopefully we'll have a guest again soon. It was nice having Jason last week, and we'll see if we can snag someone for next week.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Have a good day.
See ya.
As a family-run business, First National Real Estate McGregor understands that the property market can be stressful. However, with a strong team in both sales and rentals, we are here to guide you through the property maze. Find out more today at mcgregorfn.com.